Well, responsibilities as a county commissioner.
Yeah.
One, we have a 3-person board of commissioners. We are elected for a 4-year term. And we have, by the county code, the responsibility for health, safety, and welfare. Now that sounds kind of simplistic, but think of things that would pertain to health, safety, and welfare. We're responsible for the 911 center. We have the county prison. We have human services, which may or may not be services that have affected anyone in your family particularly, but maybe some of your friends. Children and youth. We have mental health and those with intellectual disabilities. We have drug and alcohol. We also have a youth panel that's part of drug and alcohol. We have the aging office. So for those who have services that are elderly, we provide care and outreach to them. So, as a leader, we also are responsible for the budget. And we receive tax dollars from the residents in the county on their property to fund the departments and services that I just provided. We also have grants that come in from the federal government and from the state that offset sometimes the shortfalls that we have in taxes. So we have about 1,100 employees at the county. We also have a structure of other elected officials that we call the row offices. One office would be the district attorney, one would be the register of wills, the recorder of deeds, and in many, many years ago, they had traditionally been on the first floor of the courthouse, and that's why people would come in and they would go down the row, either paying their taxes or getting a marriage license or a hunting license or something like that. If you go to the county website, all of those offices are identified, and the elected official that manages those offices, you can find all of those also.
Do you enjoy your position, and if so, why?
I do enjoy my position. My position is very different than the position I had held previously. I served for 25 years in the Marine Corps and had a variety of assignments both in the U.S. and around the world. But I was appointed when a commissioner left office and served his 3-year term, and then I ran in an election for my own 4-year term, and all the yard signs that you see and knocking on the doors, that is also part of the responsibility to get to this position. One part is that while you need political instances of campaigning to win the election, once you come into the courthouse in the role that the commissioners are in, I believe that you give services to everyone, and there's no discrimination on parties or ability to pay or by gender for the services that are delivered.
Okay. And I guess it's not working, but what's the most rewarding part of your job?
I think the most rewarding part is when someone calls and they have a concern, whether that's for children, youth, or perhaps they see a neighbor that might be kind of reluctant to call for services, and we're able to then provide the best care that we can, realizing that a lot of folks are sometimes hesitant to recognize that they need services, and especially now with children and youth and drug and alcohol. Sometimes those who need the most care are the ones that are the last ones to kind of recognize it.
What do you enjoy most about your job?
I think the ability to provide those services. Cumberland County has just been ranked #1 best place to live, and that compares us to the other counties in the state. We still have a very, very low tax rate. We have high quality of services. Unemployment here is very low. Salaries are pretty moderately high, And we have 9 great school districts. You're in one of them.
Yeah.
And while the county doesn't have a responsibility to the schools, we do have interaction with, again, children, youth, and drug and alcohol. Truancy, attendance has been a really big issue that I've kind of taken on myself to make sure that everybody gets to school, and when you're there that you stay in school.
Yeah.
So that graduation rates are high, and that you have the best opportunity for college, vocational schools, or a job that pays well when you graduate.
What's the most difficult part?
I think the most difficult part is balancing the budget. Taxes are a very, very controversial topic, and that is what we have to pay our bills with. So we have to balance the taxes that we take in, the services that we provide, and keeping the cost within reason. And oftentimes the costs keep going up, and the taxes oftentimes don't marry up with that. So where you have to make cuts, just sort of like your home budget, that you decide, well, we're not going to spend this amount on something this year that we might wanted to do. We have to make those tough decisions. Now it's a 3-person board,
Yeah.
and it would be a majority vote, so it does not have to be a unanimous vote, but it has to be a 2-to-1 vote.
What have you learned about leadership in your job?
I've learned that you need to collaborate, you need to reach out, you need to understand what sort of someone that might have a different opinion of yours really is passionate about. And there are 6 words that I keep on my desk, and that is listen to learn and learn to listen.
Have you done anything as a leader that you regret?
Have I done anything as a leader that I regret?
Yeah.
I would say that I regret. I think that we all sort of wish we could do more, and sometimes that's restrained by, again, it comes back to taxes, it comes back to how much we have to spend. But oftentimes you can be creative in providing some services that don't necessarily have to revolve around money or taxes, that you can give of your time, you can give of some other means of charity rather than just simply dollars.
As a leader, is it better to be loved or feared?
Well, I think at one point in your life, you will probably be both.
Yeah.
Okay? And depending on the circumstances, it's how you deal with that. Whether or not you let the circumstances of being loved or feared. I do not believe anyone should be in a leadership role that those who you are responsible for fear you. There are really no good outcomes in fear. The best outcome is, again, establishing the goal, working together collaboratively to achieve that goal, and ultimately, it's not about loving that leader, but of respecting that leader. And sometimes the tough choices come, and it should not be fear-driven, but the motivation should be to accomplish the goal that has been put in front of you.
Is there anyone in your company or under your leadership that you need to protect or watch out for, and how would you do that?
Well, I think you need to ensure that all your employees have a safe working environment, that they do not fear coming to work. I'm watching a video right now of a young man getting his Eagle Scout, and he produced a video on bullying. And I think sometimes we think it's only in the classroom, and in fact it's in the real world. So you want to ensure that you create a work environment where there's safety. There's an opportunity that if you have a grievance, that you can bring that to your immediate supervisor. And sometimes they come all the way to the commissioner's desk, but usually they're handled within the departments that the employee is assigned.
Name one famous leader that you personally admire, and why do you admire him or her?
I admire General P.X. Kelly. He's a retired commandant of the United States Marine Corps. I had worked with General Kelly, and over the course of years have become now friends with General Kelly, and he has been consistent in his leadership style. He's been unwavering in his dedication to integrity, and has mentored quite a few Marines, and I'm very grateful that I can call him if I need to on a tough question that I might have, and he's still there.
And then, obviously there are some terrible leaders throughout history. How do you think good leaders are most commonly led astray? And do you think that they start out corrupt, or do you think that they become corrupt over time?
I think it's the atmosphere of not being able to divorce yourself from the job and from the power or the perceived power that comes with the job. So at the end of the day, probably you will move from the position that you're in to something else. And you would want to put your head on the pillow at night and realize that you did the very best you could, and that your questions about corruption and going down sort of a less than integrity driven path, again, I think has a lot to do with the perception of power and wielding that power, and what really ultimately does come down to bullying, whether that's at the national level to another country or to a friend or to a colleague, to kind of, in a juvenile way, kind of get your own way. So
that's all I have.
that's all you got?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. So what do you like best about school?